Yo, so I want to do a bit of a different series. Genshin's currently having an update, and it's going to be a bit awkward if I release a quest video this week. So instead, I'm going to do maybe 1, 2, 3, 5, 16 different separate videos. Essentially, I just want to do a quick little bite-sized series that I can just talk about stuff and not have to worry about editing it too much. I kind of just want to start a series where I just speak. You know, I yap, I talk about various different things going on in my life, whether it be recent or in the past. So that's what this is. I will say, first couple episodes most likely are going to be pretty personal and I guess pretty depressing. The reason why I'm starting this series is pretty important. It's mostly for self-help. So, what I want to talk about today is the 2-week incident. What is the 2-week incident? What am I referring to when I say that? Very recently, around I think about at this point 2 weeks ago, I had a period of 1 to 2 weeks where I had a really just poor mental health struggle. There was various other things that I was dealing with, but poor mental health struggle is probably the easiest way to describe what I went through. So here's what happened. First off, my job. I don't really tend to have too many issues with my job. I actually like my job. It's just a janitor, being a janitor at a elementary school. I have a lot of flexibility in how I work, so I actually don't dislike my job. I feel like a lot of people dislike their jobs when they go into a career path. Cleaning is very therapeutic for me, even though I have a lot of trauma behind it. I can clean pretty well, and that just allows me to, you know, either think about certain things or maybe put on a podcast and watch YouTube. You know, it's very therapeutic, very calming for me because I'm so autopilot-y. I can allow myself to be lost in thought, basically. With that being said, I had a bit of a hiccup at work. Around the beginning of the first week, I had an incident. Basically how it started was I went to my boss the day before, I guess the job incident is what I'll call it. I don't really know what to call it. I basically spent a really long time cleaning the area. It was unusually dirty that day, and I spent a little more time cleaning than usual. Usually, with my job, I can get stuff done pretty quick, and I usually have about... This is one of the reasons why I like my job. I have around 2 hours to play with of me time. I get done cleaning pretty early, and there really isn't much else to do in the school that isn't already redundant, so I typically just, you know, bring my laptop, watch some stuff, get some video editing done, various other things, you know, being useful, being productive with my time. And I usually get it almost every single time. There's not a time where I don't get it, unless on this particular day I had a struggle with cleaning because it was a lot more dirtier than usual. Not for any particular reason, weirdly enough. But yeah, it was just a bit more dirty. So I get out at usually 10:30, and I was working about until 10. Like, I actually had to skip a lunch because it was so dirty. So yeah, that happens. You know, never usually happens. So just an unusual outlier. And that on itself wouldn't really be that effective. Now, the next day, for some reason, the employees, or not the employees, the teachers at my school have been complaining about not really having good, clean classrooms, which at first was like, okay, we probably need to clean this, this, and this. There's probably something specific about that we're not cleaning as well. So they let us know, like, hey, do this, this, and this extra, and I actually spend a little more time cleaning than I usually do now to make sure that the teachers didn't complain. Fast forward a month, and that really dirty 10 o'clock day happens, and I feel really good that I cleaned that day. I didn't think there was any ounce to complain. I cleaned pretty much everything I had to. Is what I thought. When I came in the next day, my janitor boss comes up to me and he's like, yeah, I think they're complaining, and I'm not sure why. Complaints don't really bug me. It's just the system that at the school is like pretty trash. It doesn't allow for great communication with our teachers. The thing to take away from this is they complained about my cleaning, and I spent probably the most time the day previous, make sure I cleaned very, very well. So I thought, oh, what the heck, they're wrong completely. I actually did clean. But I think it was just a pile of complaints that were brought over from like last month. Strangely enough, we changed the previous month before to clean a little bit better because we were told about it before and we switched it. But the teachers are basically still complaining. So I'm actually not sure why they're complaining now. It might have something to do with just generally building a case against the district. It sounds a bit of a stretch, which is what I thought, but if that's what you're trying to do, then I actually don't mind that much. The general job stuff is a bit annoying. You know, one incident happened during the week that was kind of whatever. It happens. However, that 2-week incident where I had a pretty bad mental health breakdown, it wasn't just that. It was many other things. So let's get into the second thing. The day that this complaint was made was Valentine's Day. And the classrooms were probably had triple the trash that they usually have because the kids getting some, you know, Valentine's Day snacks. So you could probably see my annoyance of them asking me to clean better when I cleaned really good the first day. But then, you know, I got some complaints that I wasn't cleaning. And now the teachers are, classrooms are way, way, way dirtier than usual. So, yeah, I was a bit annoyed. But, you know, happens. The thing is, though, Valentine's Day builds into another thing, another, like, problem that I've been having recently. But I don't want to get into that yet, because there are 2 more things that I want to talk about. The third thing that I want to talk about is I had an incident with my stepdad let my dog out on accident. Normally this isn't a problem. He's usually found pretty quick. But on this day, it was pretty particularly cold. Probably the coldest day we've had in months. So I'm at work. I'm being called and said that my dog was let out without a leash, without a tracking of like a number to tell the person who found them, hey, this is this person's dog, call this number. He didn't have that on him. He usually has his tag where it says his number, but he didn't have that. So here is my dog, who's a Yorkshire Terrier, by the way. Very cute, very small dog. I'm worried that he's gonna freeze out in the cold because it's so cold. It's like very, very low temperature. Now, I had a suspicion where he went. My stepdad ended up finding him. But the fact that he got out in the first place is... I didn't really get mad. No, I shouldn't say that. I got angry, but it was more of a... That is really annoying that I'm at work and I can't help find him. Not annoying that someone is incompetent kind of thing. It was more frustrated and worried than it was anger. So yeah, that happens. So now we have 3 things. We have my job complaining I'm not cleaning, and me already being tired from the day previous of just being a little more cleaner than usual, and then on top of that, the job just being completely dirty because of Valentine's Day. Now here is where things get a bit, I guess, a bit more sad, and it'll start to make sense why all of these little things are building up. The next thing I want to talk about is, I think for the past couple of years, I've kind of had a tendency to be on my own with a lot of stuff that I do. And I can't help but feel lonely at times. It's interesting because I actually don't mind being alone at all. I actually love being alone. But I wondered if the alone part was me wanting to be alone because I liked it, or because it was more convenient that way. I wasn't sure which one it was. And when Valentine's came around, I had a different kind of loneliness pop up. A just crippling loneliness of, you know, I'm not someone who particularly cares about relationships. I'm very firm in my belief of when relationships come, they come, but most people should just worry about themselves and figure themselves out. And relationships should really become secondary until you get into one. Like, don't make it your sole goal, because once you start chasing relationships, you end up not focusing on yourself as much, and then it results in, if you do get in a relationship, you're not the best person you can be. And I'm a firm believer in working on yourself so that if you end up getting in a relationship, you can be the best person you can for the other person. On top of that, I also am a firm believer of if you end up not finding any relationship, I would rather you be happy than not be happy. So just working on yourself, I think a lot of people mistake working on yourself as like this altruistic, pandering, virtue signaling phrase. The reason I say, work on yourself is more along the lines of you really should work on yourself because you want to be the best possible person you can be. And a relationship of any kind, not just couples and all that, won't really change anything about that. You need to be able to change yourself and work on yourself and have that habit so that when you do go in a relationship, you know how to do it already. All that to say, I'm not a lady killer of any means. I don't really get into relationships that much. And there are reasons for it other than building myself up and worrying about myself. I have a lot of, I don't want to say trauma, but I guess that is what it is with relationships. I haven't had very good relationships in the past, but I think that's better for another video, not something I want to get into right now because it'll take too long. But yeah, let's just say I haven't had great relationships in the past, so it's just much easier to not be in one. But that doesn't change the fact that I am a pretty lonely person most of the time, because a lot of the stuff that I do is self-sufficient. I'm very lone wolf-esque. I don't ask for help. And I think it kind of hurts me doing that, because when I do get lonely, it almost feels like it's wrong. I shouldn't get lonely. I should work on myself more because I have that indescribable loneliness. But I'm not sure if because I'm not being accepted because I don't have like a girlfriend or whatever, that I'm failing or something. I guess it's weird. It's difficult to describe the feeling, but I almost feel like because I don't have someone who unconditionally loves me in my life in terms of like a significant other, I have people who unconditionally love me regardless of their relationship with me, and I have that same love back to those people. But it is still difficult to not have a relationship with, another person. Having that intimacy is very important to me. I'm not a very intimate person, but I have noticed that, especially as I'm maturing, that kind of intimacy is super, super important and not something that I want to not take seriously, right? I am sitting here feeling indescribably lonely. It's pretty bad. Kind of at the same time that I'm feeling this loneliness, I'm also blaming myself for it because I feel as if I'm not the best person I can be, and maybe that's why I don't have a relationship, I guess, which is not true at all. I have great relationships. I don't need another person to confirm that. But the fact that I don't have a great intimate relationship, like a girlfriend or anything like that, definitely does hurt me a lot more than I'm willing to admit. And I wish it didn't. It's kind of annoying. That indescribable loneliness, there's a lot more to it, but I think that could be its own topic, so I'll leave it at that. So all of that is happening with the job incident, and then Valentine's Day hits, and that gets amplified because obviously Valentine's Day is the day of love, Everyone's appreciating the people they love and their significant others, and here I am, little old me, traumatized from past relationships, but wanting one in their own way, but also recognizing that I don't believe I'm ready for one either. Definitely hurts. Now we get into a very big catalyst, and not for the reasons that you'd expect from what I'm about to say. After the Valentine's Day, a week passes, and this loneliness that I'm feeling is not going away. I'm not quite sure what's going on because I'm very in touch and I'm very aware of when something is wrong with me mentally. So when I have that loneliness and nothing is happening and it's not going away, I'm like kind of picking up the signal of, oh boy, something's going on. Then I had a family member pass away, my grandma, very recently. It's not actually a family member that I've been very close to. I'm not very close to my grandma. My other family members are way closer to her than I am. But let's just say that it didn't help my situation, because now I feel horrible that I haven't really built that relationship and I never got to say goodbye or whatever, that kind of thing. Maybe if I had built a relationship, I could have got something out of that. And I've had a family member in the past that has been kind of like that, very similar in that situation. Excuse me, very similar situation where I've had that feeling of not doing enough, not appreciating the time I have left with them. Topple all that with the loneliness, and you get pretty depressed old me. So normally, this stuff would affect, it's going to affect anyone pretty badly. However, I actually think it surprisingly didn't affect me as much as it maybe should have. However, here's when I really knew something was wrong. When I really thought about this incredible loneliness that I was feeling for the past couple of days, I remember just speaking to friends and family about it. And, you know, they're reassuring me I have a pretty good support system, that everything's okay. And then I go to bed that night, and I have, like, some incredibly self-deprecating thoughts, to, like, the point of, like, it's probably the first suicidal thought I've had that hasn't been immediately dismissed. I've had suicidal thoughts before, but they're not like, oh my god, I want to kill myself, everything's so bad. They're more like, what happens if I was gone? Not if I committed suicide, but what if I was gone? What would happen? What situation? What people do I need to appreciate more? You know, like self-reflection and that kind of thing. But that was the first self-deprecating suicidal thought I've had. And the fact that I had that was bad enough, but I think the worst part about it all is I was in bed while I was thinking about it, and I don't think I shed a single tear. And that worried me. The fact that I wasn't crying, I guess I should say, I don't really cry very often, if at all. And I think it's a good and bad thing. I think when I do cry, it's very difficult for me to communicate, so I try not to cry. But at the same time, I wish I cried more just to let my emotions out, you know, just to let them run through. I wish I actually could cry more so that when I do cry and I want to communicate, I could actually be so used to crying that I can actually communicate my feelings properly. It's very annoying crying for me. But there are times where I'm like, okay, definitely this is the time to cry. Honestly, throughout my whole life, there are times where I'm like, dude, you should really be crying right now. You should really be processing and mourning and grieving. And I don't. And it makes me question if I'm like this heartless, emotionless husk. Now, obviously I'm not. I'm not any of that. I'm very well aware I'm not any of that. And I know that these are just thoughts, right? If I'm having these thoughts, they're at the very least being considered. Whether or not I'm a pretty logical person when it comes to a lot of things. That's why a lot of these things like suicidal thoughts are very self-deprecating thoughts. When I have them, they're not usually affecting me, but because I was in such a vulnerable state at the time when that happened, those thoughts hit me a lot harder than they should have. And I have them pretty frequently. I think as frequently as any person who, I don't know, might think about this stuff constantly, thinks about themselves a lot, is very self-aware of their emotions. I think about this stuff a lot. Now that I know that I've had these thoughts, I think I'm noticing them a lot more, because I feel like I didn't have these thoughts a lot, but now that I've been through this incident and that really bad suicidal thoughts came in, I think I've noticed that I've always had self-deprecating thoughts, not suicidal, but self-deprecating thoughts of like, oh, you don't deserve the position you're in, you don't deserve to have the privilege that you have, you don't deserve to have the support that you have. Someone in your position could make use of your position a lot better than you ever could. Now that I've had the injuring thoughts, I think those thoughts pose to me a lot more of a red flag now than they ever should have or will. So yeah, that week I had to just take a break from work. Honestly, I hesitate to say used my, grandma's death as like an excuse to get off of work and process something that had nothing to do with her. But I think it was warranted. I think I did need that break, and so I took it. And I just took it and I hung out with friends, but for some reason I just felt like something needed to change and I wasn't sure what it was. And then I went to bed on a Saturday and woke up on a Sunday, and I just kind of sat there with my emotions and just logically thought, like, I'm not sure what happened this past week or two, but something needed to change. And I'm gonna start changing stuff until I feel happy with myself. So the first thing I did was I just texted and called a bunch of people. Not everybody, given I haven't texted my whole family or just and all of my friends, but I just texted a select few of some of the more important people in my life and told them that I was gonna be, that I was just appreciative of their kindness and friendship and family-ship, I guess, in terms of family. I just wanted to show them that I was appreciative of their presence, which actually kind of, in a way, made me think that they might think that this is a huge red flag and that I'm about to commit suicide, because I feel like a lot of times when someone's about to do that, they seem a lot more happy the days following because they, like, accepted it. So I almost was worried that they were going to take it like that, and it wasn't the case at all. I just needed some time to process a lot of the stuff that I was going through by myself. Which, here's the strange part. I'm kind of limiting myself right now with talking with family members and friends, and I'm doing a lot of research and self-help and therapy and, you know, all stuff in that field. And I've noticed that my therapy has been talking to people, and it might be a lot more important than I think, because I've been getting withdrawals of talking to people. I've basically set myself a goal of, for a month, just focus on yourself, try to do minimal communication with all your friends and family members if you can. You know, if you need to, communicate, but otherwise, I wanted to just lock in and try to process, think, and then go forward with methods to help my mental health. But as a result, I haven't been communicating with family and friends as much as I should. Or, I don't know if I should say used to, but I think I just generally don't do a lot of stuff with other people. And I'm not sure if it's because I'm afraid of being connected, or maybe I'm afraid of being a burden. And that's why I don't involve as many people. I actually don't even think that's true. It might just be my mind playing tricks on me, because I love talking with people, regardless of the topic, including emotional connections with them. It's never been something I'm afraid of, but it's also weird because I feel like if I talk to people about my thoughts and feelings on certain things, then I'm being a burden to them, and it's completely irrational. But I don't think I've noticed it until now that it's like that it is irrational, these thoughts that I have. I've always been under the impression that it's a lot easier to be alone than it is to have a bunch of people and connections. I've always kind of preferred to be alone, and I think now I notice that maybe me being alone is a result of me just wanting to take the easy route, the easy path. I want to be alone because I don't want anyone to worry, so I can suffer on my own. You know, I don't want anyone to worry about me. I just rather shut down, be alone, rot, and mindlessly go about my life until the day I die, and just drift through life. And I don't know if it's probably not the right thing to think about, you know? At least, if I want to be happy and content with my life, I don't think that's the right way to go about it. As a result, through the 2 weeks, I've processed all this stuff, and I've decided, hey, I should probably do something. So what should I do? I think one of the things I want to do is improve a bunch of stuff in my life. I have a lot of issues. Health-wise, there's a bunch of, like, underlying things that I'll get into later on in maybe different videos, but I have a considerable amount of issues that people know about, and also a considerable amount of issues that people don't know about, and I think I want to work on each and every single one at the same time, all at once. So I've been looking into some workout routines. I'm looking into food. I'm looking into like some meal plans, food prep, stuff like that, etc., etc. I've also been looking into some self-help stuff to help me process a lot of the stuff that I've talked about today, and a lot more. I'm kind of holding back a lot of the things that I'm thinking about, actually, for the sake of brevity and ease of editing this video, because I don't know how this video is going to end up. I don't know if I'm making a huge editing thing or just cut up and splice it together. But yeah, I think I'm not going to say I'm good now. I think now I've realized that my emotions are really complex, and some are great and some aren't. Whereas before, I always assumed that I was fine, and I don't think I ever said I didn't need therapy, but I definitely assumed that I was a lot better off than most people, which I don't think is true. I think a lot of people do need therapy, because sometimes it takes someone else telling you that, hey, you need help, to really get help. Unfortunately, that's a lesson I had to learn practically, and here's the thing. It's a lesson I learned on my own, but it didn't need to be that way. I could have just learned it from somebody else, and it would have been much easier. I'm kind of hesitant on being kind of this lone wolf personality, persona, I don't know what to call it. I want to be a little more active in, at the very least, communicating these things with family members and friends. Which is weird to say because I feel like I have been active, but maybe what I need to do is be more active in processing them myself with professional help. When I have these emotions or these feelings, emotions, these thoughts, that I know where they come from, know how my thoughts work and process, and can catch when stuff like suicidal thoughts come up, and learning how to kind of not cope with them, but just notice that they're there, and notice that, hey, these are just thoughts, but also take them seriously enough to understand why I'm having them, and to change the things that maybe make those thoughts a little more prevalent. I guess I should discuss what I've been doing. Definitely doing this video series is going to help me. So I don't know how frequent it's going to be, but I want to do just more of these videos, just talking about stuff. But yeah, doing this video series is like, I guess it's going to be kind of a journal, or like a diary, I don't know. I'm not really shy about sharing this with anybody. I'm literally posting on the interwebs, you know. Definitely not shy about sharing any of these feelings. I think later on, when I get to topics that I'm a little less comfortable with, and that I'm not quite ready for talking about yet, I think this video series will be a very, very useful thing. Maybe not for just me processing, but maybe help other people realize these kind of feelings, or just give something to think about throughout your own life, kind of thing. I don't know. I'm just yapping at this point. So yeah, I've done a bunch of research on some self-help. So I've looked at a bunch of YouTubers, I've just done a bunch of research all around. I've looked at articles, I've looked at YouTube videos, I've kind of just generally watched a lot of different creators, whether it be people who are in the field of psychiatry, or just analysis of different things. You know, I've even watched things like character analysis of different media properties that I am into. And I've kind of noticed that ever since I started looking to self-help, I'm looking at the characters that I watch these videos on a lot more of a self-reflective note. And what can I do better? What can I learn from these people, from these stories? It's actually very fun. I'm enjoying it. So yeah, the list that things I'm probably gonna do, definitely this video series. I definitely want to do better at communicating in general. So that's also for what this video series will do. I also want to get better at some general health stuff. So exercise. Exercise is more of stretching. I don't think I'll have a problem exercising. I do want to stretch a little more though, for sure. Stretching has been a big thing I wanted to get into. So I am doing that. I'm working on that. And just generally thinking about getting into some mental health stuff. So therapist isn't going to be very fast. It's going to be very difficult actually to make it a speedy process. but that's fine. I don't actually mind. It'll give me some time to get some self-help. I think I do need a therapist, but maybe I also need a life coach. Maybe I need to talk to other people. Maybe I need all three. But I want to change something about my life. And not just one thing. I want to change a bunch of multiple different things and just see how they work. They don't have to be successful. I just want to see how they work. So yeah, I'm currently just going through the motions of testing loads of toads of different things about my life. So health-wise, I'm eating better. I'm trying to look into stuff that makes me eat better, and also stretching with exercise and stuff like that. I bought a weight scale for me personally to just keep track of my weight at the very least, and I'm eating healthier. For mental health, I've looked into self-help videos, and I think once I finish up my self-help research and therapy research, once I start getting back into talking with family members and friends a lot more frequently, that's really going to be a big help, because that's always been my way of processing these things. And for, I think, about a month, I'm not going to have that, because I am doing the research, and I let all the appropriate people know. But it does suck that I'm not communicating with people that I usually do about this stuff for this next month. It's kind of torture, actually. I've been wanting to talk with not just friends but family members about these kind of things, and I want to make sure I learn them properly, so I'm taking the appropriate measures to, you know, I'm not communicating as much, I guess. But there is a reason for it. I was worried that maybe me saying I don't want to communicate this for this set period of time might seem a bit cheap, and as a way of me not wanting to at all communicate to anyone, just because, again, with that self-deprecating thoughts of it's way easier if no one cares about me, I don't want anyone to care about me, I don't want to build any relationships, I'd rather be alone kind of thing, so that I can kind of rot by myself. That's a kind of a very dangerous thought, and I've thought about not doing this at all, like not taking the time to get self-help. But I also think it is important, so that, you know, if I take time off of communicating with people, it kind of brings to the forefront how important it has always been to me to communicate. And even though I am kind of suffering, it's not in the way that I thought it would have been before. Whereas before I thought maybe this is the self-deprecating side of me, wanting to take a break from talking to people because I want to suffer and punish myself. But now, you know, about halfway through, I'm about halfway through the self-isolation research arc, I guess. Now that I'm halfway through, I'm realizing that, no, I think it's just I want to make sure that this is done properly, while also recognizing that it's going to be very painful. But in the end, I think I will end up being a lot better of a person on the other side. And so far, I've been very proud of myself for the stuff that I've kind of accomplished. Hey, this video is I don't know, video series, I don't know what I'll call this, podcast, Gapcast, who knows, bro? Who actually knows? This series won't always be so dull. I definitely just wanted to get on and yap on the microphone, since I won't be uploading a usual gameplay Genshin video this week. I thought I'd maybe upload 1, 2, maybe even 3 yap sessions, very lightly edited. So yeah, that's kind of the things that I've been going through this week. These past couple weeks, the bad weeks that happened to me, the bad 2 weeks, the 2-week incident, and I thought I'd just talk about it a little bit. That's pretty much all I wanted to talk about. I don't really need topics to talk about. I think I have plenty, but maybe eventually I'll think of more interesting things to talk about, that I want to just get on the mic and talk about stuff, pop culture or otherwise. But yeah, that's all I wanted to talk about. I hope my yapping session was insightful. Maybe it'll be helpful to somebody, to make them realize maybe the things I talked about might help other people. Maybe nobody watches. Question mark emoji. Who knows? Maybe this blows up and gets like 5 billion views. Maybe it doesn't. Who knows? If one thing's for sure, this is definitely not for anybody. This is strictly for me, so that I can process these emotions fully, process these things fully, make sure that I'm properly taking the proper etiquette to studying myself. At the end of the day, I just want to be better. If for nobody else but myself, I want to be better at processing things. I feel like I'm repeating myself a lot, but yeah, that's pretty much all. Let's see what the next video will be about. I'll get into more depth with more stuff if I ever think about it. We'll see.